Welcome, one and all, into the Radio DePaul studio here in the basement of University Hall. I'm Garrett Neal, and this is your weekly box office breakdown. And despite the fact that nothing really big came out, or nothing big at all came out, only one new movie last weekend, and it was the Super Bowl weekend, it was a really poor weekend at the box office. There's actually a good amount to talk about today because this weekend wasn't just bad, it was historically bad. And hey, you know what they always say, if you're going to be bad, be the worst, right? So we've got that to talk about. Plus, now we're kind of through the doldrums of the year. We got some movies coming out this weekend, including, but not limited to, the Lego Movie 2, the second part, which I'm decently excited for, and it's going to be the first big box office blockbuster type movie of the year. So we've got all that and more, but let's just jump right into this past weekend. Before we even get to the top 5, I want to let you guys know just how bad this weekend was. We knew it was going to be bad, okay? Miss Bala was the only new movie coming out. Wasn't expected to do very well. Did a little bit worse than it was even expected to do. And it was Super Bowl weekend. Super Bowl weekend's generally pretty low because, you know what, not a lot of people going to see the movies on Sunday because, hey, people got plans. I mean, sometimes people might go during the day, but during the day is generally not very busy anyway. And then once you get past, 4 o'clock or so, people are gone. There's always a couple of people who just don't care about the Super Bowl, or like, hey, this is the time to do stuff because everyone else is going to watch the Super Bowl. But hey, you want to go to Disneyland on Sunday? Great. Especially there was a lot of rain in California. They're like, I saw a couple tweets like, "Yo, man, I was at Disneyland and it was raining, so it was pretty empty during the day. And then once everyone left for the Super Bowl, there was 5-minute waits for everything." You do want to go to the movies? I mean, if there was something big out, you could probably go, and there wouldn't be anyone there. I'm sure if you went to your theater on Sunday night, it was pretty much empty. And so all that combined to make this bad, but it was honestly even worse than we could have even ever hoped for. The top 12 movies combined for $55.4 million, and no film grossed over $10 million this weekend. Ouch. The lowest total for the top 12 since September of 2017. And it's the worst Super Bowl weekend since 2000. Okay? That's almost 20 years ago. Wow. And the lead movie that weekend, back in the day, was Eye of the Beholder, starring Ewan McGregor, which led the box office with a whopping $5.9 million. So that must have been an atrocious weekend. I wonder what the Super Bowl was that year. I don't remember. I feel like that must have been the Rams and the Oilers, maybe? I don't know. Which was a good Super Bowl. So maybe that's why. And also, there was clearly nothing big coming out that weekend. The Hollywood Reporter said this is also a top 20 worst weekend just in general, not just Super Bowl, but a top 20 worst weekend since 1997. So you get all the weekends ever since 1997. This is in that top 20. So it was bad. It was really bad. So that being said, let's get into that top 5. It's going to be some familiar faces. At number 1, for the third week in a row, is Glass. Dropped just about 50% this weekend. Brought in $9.5 million. Just missed out on that $10 million mark. Yikes. Its total domestic gross is now up to $88.6 million. It's doing just fine. Worldwide, it added another $9.5 million to bring its global gross just under $200 million. So I'm sure Universal is very happy with how that is doing, regardless of the mixed response it has got critically, even though I enjoyed it for the most part. At number 2, another familiar face is The Upside, which is at number 2 for the third week in a row. Once again, had a pretty small drop, just 27%. Continues to be kind of the early surprise hit of 2019, brought in 8.6 million, bringing its total domestic gross up to 75.4 million in its 4-week box office run. Then at number 3, we got our first and only new movie in Miss Bala, the remake of the older version that I don't remember when it came out. But I'm sure most people that went to see this did not know this was a remake. I don't think Miss Bala is super. It's not a hot property that people are really fighting over, I don't think. And it was projected, or we said last week it was maybe going to get around 7.5 million. It got 6.8 million, so definitely on the lower side. It is just a $15 million reported production budget, so it doesn't have to do gangbusters at the box office, but still probably a little lower than Sony was looking for. Certainly didn't help that it did not get very good reviews. Has a 27% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes right now, a 41 Metascore, 4.9 on IMDb, and a 61% audience score, audience approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So a little bit higher from the audiences there, still not great. Regardless of whether they enjoyed it or not, people clearly did not come see this film very much, but I guess they didn't really see anything else either. So it will probably, we probably won't see that in the top 5 next week, because we got a handful. We got 4 new films coming out this weekend and the weekend of the 8th. I get the 8th's the Friday, so I guess that's what it's the weekend. You go by the Friday, right? Not the Sunday. I have no idea. I'm going to say it's the weekend of the 8th, and it's if at least 3 of them I think will probably be in the top 5. So Miss Bala will probably be bumped out because Glass and The Upside are still going to be fighting for that 5th spot. Moving on to number 4. Now we're back into familiar territory. Aquaman, still hanging around. Brought in another $4.8 million to its domestic total, which is now a little above $323 million. Internationally, it brought in $4.6 million. Next week, it's going to open in Japan, so maybe it'll make a little bit of a splash there. Aha. Water jokes. Am I right, guys? Oh, man. I suck. And number 5 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I was very happy to see. Brought in a big haul at the Annie Awards this past weekend, which didn't give it a bump at the box office, which surprises nobody because most people don't really follow the Annie Awards. But there's some nice awards that focus on animation in feature films and television. And I'm a big animation fan, so I look into them just a little bit. It brought in 4.5 million this week, bringing its total domestic gross up to 175.4 million, and it is now officially the highest grossing Sony Animated Pictures film of all time domestically. So I am very happy about that. We will see if it continues its dominance in the animated awards come Oscar time. It continues to look more and more likely that it will take home that award, and I certainly think it deserves it, even though, I think I still enjoy Incredibles 2 more, but I think that Spider-Man gets a lot of bonus points for these awards just because of how much more unique it is animation-wise. But right now, part of me wants to say I like Spider-Verse more, but I've seen both several times already. I've seen Into the Spider-Verse 4 times. I've seen Incredibles 2 5 times. I have seen Into the Spider-Verse 4 times since the last time I've seen Incredibles 2. So I'll be watching Incredibles 2 again soon because I need to for a project. So after that, I'll be able to more properly gauge which film I prefer, but still, hope that wins. And that's going to round out the top 5. It's things are going to get mixed up a little bit next week. Few other things to note. Green Book continued to get a little bit of an Oscar bump, expanded to an additional 200 theaters, so it's sitting around 2,600 theaters Right now, it brought in 4.3 million. Goes good enough for spot number 6. We'll see if that's all this buzz is going to help it with actually winning awards. I'm sure it'll come home with a few, but there's been a lot of pushback, I think, just for its portrayal of certain characters and just the kind of type of story it's telling. And I think the Oscars wants to try and stay away from that as much as possible. So I don't think it'll win. Roma is what I've heard a lot of people saying. I'll be watching that at some point this week. I've heard only great things about it, but this year it seems like the Oscars are really trying to push some more well-known films, even though really since kind of the mid-2000s to current day, the trend has been to kind of pick some of the more some of the smaller films, the independent films. Maybe this is the year they kind of switch back to doing the bigger films, in which case maybe A Star is Born could get it, or maybe Green Book. But Roma definitely has some buzz too. But this isn't the Oscar show. So let's move on from that. They Shall Not Grow Old, which had broke the record for like the best Fathom event when it had a short release in December as a Fathom event. I think it was on for 2 days in December. That had a kind of a full release, went into a little over 700 theaters this week. Of course, directed by Peter Jackson, World War II documentary, brought in $2.4 million. It's just a little bit of note there. And, of course, the per theater average winner was Miss Bala, but that's lame. So kind of the new film, which actually ended up coming in third, was in 4 theaters this week, brought in $12,720 per theater for a total of $50,878, was Arctic, which is a drama about a man stranded in the Arctic after an airplane crash who has to decide whether to remain in the relative safety of his makeshift camp or to embark on a deadly trek through the unknown. It's directed and written by Joe Penna, has a 71 Metascore, 7.3 on IMDb. So, a little interesting. Of course, we had Sundance stuff has been going around recently, so I'm sure we'll see some of those popping up soon. With that, we will take a quick little break because we got 4 new movies to talk about when we come back, because things are finally starting to happen. Things are coming out. It's going to be exciting, although this week was exciting just because of how bad it was. But we'll take a quick break and talk about the Lego Movie, What Men Want, and a few more things when we come back. I'm Garrett Neal. This is the weekly box office breakdown. You're listening to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Welcome back, everybody. This is your weekly box office breakdown. I am your host, Garrett Neal, and you're listening to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection, coming to you live from the basement of University Hall. All right, we got 4 new movies coming out this weekend. It's getting exciting, man. It's getting exciting, baby. First and foremost, we have the first blockbuster of the year. It's not huge, but it's way bigger than anything we've gotten so far. It's the Lego Movie 2, the second part. We have had some reviews rolling in for this film. It looks like things are pretty positive, although not quite as positive as they were for the first film. We have a 91% approval critics approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes off of 44 reviews right now. It has an average score of a 7.2 out of 10 and has a 64 on Metacritic right now. So pretty positive, but maybe not amazing. The first film was a big surprise, kind of the whole, it's just a giant ad, which it is, but people really connected with that film. I myself really enjoyed it as well. Did pretty well at the box office, got I think around 500 million, just about. Then a few years later they had the Lego Batman movie, which also got very good reviews, and I also very much enjoyed it, but it was a little bit of a disappointment box office wise. Was I think $20 or $30 more million expensive to make than the Lego Movie, but made a lot less. Oh, the first Lego Movie made $257 million domestically. Worldwide, it made $470 million. So that's where I was getting that 500 million number from. And it had a $60 million production budget. So that did very well. Then Lego Batman, which of course famously did not get nominated for the Best Animated Picture Oscar. Grr. It had a $80 million reported production budget, but it only did $175 million domestically. So that was definitely a little bit of a disappointment, despite the fact that it got pretty positive reviews. Then the Lego Ninjago movie, which released later that same year, it was 2017, did even worse. Of course, I mean, they didn't expect it to do as well, I'm sure, because it did not have the branding behind it that Batman does, who is, of course, A, Batman, and B, was a prominent character in the original Lego Movie. And it also did not get very good reviews, and I saw that and also did not like it. And so I'm kind of unsure on where exactly the hype level is for the Lego franchise right now. But it at least has gotten fairly positive reviews for it, so it should be okay going in. It is releasing in supposedly 4,100 theaters. So it's getting out there. It is projected to get around 55 million this weekend. So that's going to be a shoo-in at number one, no matter what. Maybe after not going to the movies this past weekend, people will be hungry, and so maybe it'll go a little bit over. I don't know. Maybe I don't think the reviews are positive enough to make people really rush out to see it. But it shouldn't be hurt by anything this week. Something that will be hurt, likely, this week is Cold Pursuit, which is a thriller starring Liam Neeson. It is coming out in reportedly 2,500 theaters. Projected was by Box Office Pro to get around 12 million. Does have solid reviews right now, a 69 Metascore, a 92% Rotten Tomato critic approval rating with an average score of 7.4 out of 10, though that is just 25 reviews. But the big question mark here is Liam Neeson, who, in case you missed it, had some rather disturbing news come out about him this week. I mean, it seems like almost every other day, every week, we've got some bad news coming out about somebody. But I mean, this is really kind of messed up stuff from Liam Neeson. I'm not going to get into it on this podcast on this show. But look into it. It's definitely not good, and I would not be surprised if Cold Pursuit dropped a decent amount because of this news that's come out. I'm sure some people won't see it, and some people may not care, and they'll go see the movie anyway. But I know there'll be a decent chunk of people. Obviously, it wasn't really projected to do gangbusters anyway, but this is certainly not going to help at all. But there are two other movies. Next one is The Prodigy. These last two did not have reviews out for them. That's why I did them later. The Prodigy, which is a horror film about a little boy who is possessed by something, I think. It was a little unclear from the trailers. Not really my bag. Just going to stick to the Lego Movie this week. That's where I'm staying. It is releasing in 2,500 theaters as well, but it is projected to get around 5.75 million this weekend. It is up 5% from last week, so horror movie always do pretty well, don't cost too much to make. It'll be around, but I don't think it'll be in the top 5 next week unless it really surprises. But one that will be in the top 5 most likely is What Men Want. This is I guess it's a remake of the old Mel Gibson rom-com What Women Want, which is not really that good, not good. And this doesn't look that good to me either. Has Taraji P. Henson and Tracy Morgan and Shaq. Excuse me. But it is projected to get around 24 million in 2,800 theaters, so pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. There's I'm a big rom-com guy, but this one just isn't my bag. The other one I haven't seen, but holds no interest to me either. I just think the whole concept, I mean, of being able to read the other gender's thoughts is, well, I mean, first of all, there's like a whole thing of like binary right there, but, I guess, I don't know. I don't know how it works, or I guess that's like deeper than the movie needs to go, but it just like it's I guess you could do it in an interesting way, but just both movies it's just really stereotypical and just doesn't seem interesting in any way. So that's why I have not seen the original one, and that's why I will not be seeing this one either, but should still do pretty well at the box office. And that's going to do it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed last week, or this week we talked about how bad last weekend was, but at next week's show, we'll be talking about some movies that put up some decent numbers. So that'll be interesting. How much is Cold Pursuit hurt by this news? Lego Movie, does it overperform maybe a little bit? How big is the first blockbuster of 2019 going to be? We'll talk about all that and more if you join next Monday here with me, your host, Garrett Neal, on the Box Office Breakdown. Enjoy your Monday night and the rest of your week. Go see some fun movies this week.